That was crazy. Okay, so I want to talk to you today about something, and this is traditional publishing and self-publishing for books. Which is better? And this is an opinion matter because it depends from person to person on what you want. But oftentimes when this topic is discussed, you will honestly see that most people discuss it in terms of like generalities. They will tell you, oh, this is a bro of self-publishing, and this is a bro of traditionally publishing, and this is a con of self-publishing, and this is another con of traditional publishing. And so this is not something I want to do for one main reason, because I actually respect you enough to have a debate with you, to have a dialogue with you, and to consider you like an equal, if not like someone who is even more capable than I am. So I want to talk to you today about this particular topic, and I will share my side. I want you to share your side. And so, hey, let's get into it. Why I think traditional publishing is better than self-publishing for me.
Yeah, boy.
Look who just came in through the window. They live in our university, in our dormitory, and there's like hundreds of them, and they live with us. So this is not my cat. He just lives in the university. I give him food sometimes, and he always waits for my window to open up, and he comes in, and I give him food, and he leaves. Okay, let me simulate a scenario for you, right? So you pick up a book that is self-published. For the first time in weeks or months or years, you decide that you will give indie, in other words, independent authors a chance. So maybe you pick up one or two books and you read those books. One of the first things to understand is the standard of quality. Basically, things are way less consistent in self-published books than it is in traditionally published books. And this is because most self-published books do not meet industry averages. They do not meet industry, clearance. In other words, there are no gateholders. And there's going to be some negative PS about gateholders. Gateholders are not bad, because a lot of people will think, oh crap, because these gateholders are just going to push my book out. But you see, gateholders are there for one reason. People are throwing money in your book. It should meet a standard requirement. You want their money and the investment, you should give them a reason why they should invest in your book. Therefore, they are going to have gateholders and gatekeepers to ensure that there is going to be a basic minimum level of professional quality. When you read these self-published books, there is not going to be that minimum professional quality. And you know what's going to happen? For every one good self-published book, because there are good self-published books. I know this. I read them and I love them. And I love them as much as I love traditionally published books. However, because of the nature of self-publishing and how easy it is to do it, countless people just do it. And what ends up happening is that for every one good self-published book that you find, there are going to be hundreds and hundreds of other self-published books that are complete dumpster fires and don't even meet basic self-respect requirement. In other words, as a writer, you should respect yourself enough to clear your story to a basic minimum quality. Not professional, forget that. I mean to your best extent. With a lot of these self-published books, and a majority of them, that does not happen. Therefore, there is a stigma. And this stigma is going to limit you as an author. Because what do you want when you publish your book? Do you just want your book to be out there, or do you want your book to be read by people? If that is the case, which is the case for me, it is far better to not have that stigma, because it's going to limit the number of things your book can do. In other words, the reach of your book, right? So you know what's going to happen to you? Most likely, this doesn't necessarily have to be you, but most people, right? Most people, when they give self-published books a chance, which you did, you decided that after so long, you're going to give it a chance. What ends up happening is that because they end up having, most likely, you're going to have a terrible experience. And because that happens, there is a chance that when someone gives self-published books a chance or a read, they are not going to be back to self-published books because they literally paid money for a product that has not even been proofread. That means, let's say you are the author who has the one book that is really good, the book I talked about, right? Because there are self-published books that are very good. And let's say you are the author with that. What is going to happen here is that, your book is in the market out there. it has every chance of being picked up as every other book in the market, unless you do some, professional marketing, but that costs a lot. And don't forget, you are an independent. This means you cannot really endure a lot of costs if you flop. But anyway, you have as much chance as being picked up by every other book. The chance that you pick up the bad book, the not good book, is much higher than you picking up the one gem. And that means most people, when they give indie authors a shot, a chance, likely that is the last indie chance that they will ever give to indie books. And you have a book that is actually good. So what happens? Your book doesn't get enough chances because the market audience, the audience that is available, the people who are willing to give indie authors a chance and read them, they are leaving the audience pool, the potential audience pool that you have. The people are just literally leaving that pool. So you end up having way less sales because the audience that is there to start with is dying by the day. Which brings us to the next point: higher threshold for standards and reach. The gatekeepers are actually not bad. I hate when I hear a lot of writers talk negatively about gatekeepers because you are angry at the fact that those who are throwing money at your book should not vet your book, should not check your book if it meets a basic minimum professional requirement, because they are giving you their money, their investment. They are going to be spending not necessarily tons of money marketing your book, but most publishers will do basic job of marketing books. Okay, they will get it out there, they will put it onto their platforms, they will put it on their Twitter, and they will put it on their Instagram. They might not market you as much as the biggest author, but they will still make sure that your book gets a basic professional treatment. And you should not really hate the gatekeepers and the gateholders. And secondly, because the gatekeepers and the gateholders are what make traditional publishing good. You know why? Because the fact that it's actually difficult to get into traditional publishing makes writers who go for that route, the route of traditional publishing, much better. Because you are not going to get away with not being a good self-editor. You're not going to get away with not being a good self-critique individual, right? If you can't critique your own work, your own writing, you're really not going to make it in traditional publishing. And any writer, by the way, should be able to do these things. But you can do away with those things in self-publishing. Of course, you might respect yourself enough to not do that, but generally speaking, you can do away with those things, and that means you don't get better. If you are going for traditional publishing, you really have to be better. And here is where the kicker comes in. If you have never published before, you are better off going for traditional publishing. You know why? Because if you do not meet the basic minimum professional requirement of the industry, you are not a good writer. It's simple. It's not that, you are the unique savant that, people have not figured out, the genius stuff that he's doing and he's actually, or she's actually writing phenomenal stories, right? No. Likely, you're just a normal person who wakes up in the morning, brushes their teeth, goes to the toilet after a while and, boobs and drinks water and goes to sleep. This means if you really want to improve, you should be held, or you should hold yourself to a higher standard, and the market will hold you to that standard and it will make you better. And this is why I think self-publishing specifically is better for writers who have not published before like me, primarily because it just forces us to really learn and to be good for professionals, for people who have been in the industry for 20, 30, 40 years, who know what they're doing. Because let me tell you, if you have not published before, and if you have been trying to publish for so long, and you get a rejection letter, trust me, it's not them that are really putting you down. They're not keeping you down from, growing a set of wings and just taking off into heaven. No. They know what they're doing because they've been doing it for so long. You, however, have not even published a book. It just speaks of the reality that you're not good enough. And they will hold you to a standard. They will push you to it. And that will make you a better writer. And this is why, for me, traditional publishing is just much better, because I get to ensure, when I publish, I get to ensure that I actually meet a basic minimum professional requirement. Because I love writing enough to hold myself to that standard. And I appreciate the fact that the gateholders will reinforce whenever I slow down, whenever I don't critique my writing, or wherever I am blind. And then there is the stigma, first one, and reach. Because self-publishing is really just not considered professional, and for good reasons as well, because we have established that before, you just don't end up going enough places. You don't reach high. You might have a good sales initially, but generally speaking, as far as it goes, the reach of your book is not going to be as much or as well or as good as it could be with traditional publishing. Because with traditional publishing, you have powerful institutions in your support. Hopefully your publication doesn't go out of business, or they don't go bankrupt, or whatever, because that happens, that really does happen, and it screws over authors, but it also screws over the publisher, and not everyone deals with business pressures like that. But ultimately the point is that you can reach far more people and far more sales and far more, like, let's say you are like the 1% of writers that are extremely good, and you write a book that is so good, it's going to get awards. Likely, if that book is self-published, it's not really going to get the awards. If it's traditionally published, it is going to get the awards, right? And that is very crucial to understand, because reach is important. Because what do you want? Do you just want to self-publish your book and, not many people are going to read it and you're perfectly fine with that? In which case, sure, go ahead for self-publishing. But for me, for instance, because again, I respect you enough to have a debate with you and dialogue with you, I honestly consider traditional publishing better because I can go more places. I love storytelling enough that I wanted to get published, reach places, and reach higher. I don't just want reach few people, or let's say, heck, even if I am ludicrously successful at self-publishing, few thousand people. No, I don't want that. I want far more, because I want to do this as a job. I love it enough that I actually don't want to do anything else. Don't swear, but yeah, throw away everything else in life. I just want to sit down and write stories, and I want to get paid money for those stories so I can go on with my life. And I hope that you can see my perspective. Because let's say you want to reach more. Which one is better for you? Self-publishing or traditional publishing? El Hakim Daniel, which I'm just going to call Daniel because I'm not sure how to pronounce the other two names. He says, loved all these answers, because I asked this question on Twitter. Anyway, moving on. I personally would prefer to go traditional. Someone mentioned grammatical errors with indie books, and that's true. I would want to produce the most polished bookshelf-ready product as possible. And generally speaking, I hope you can agree with Akim or Daniel, and I honestly do, fully. And look, this is not me saying that if you don't work hard enough, you don't deserve anything. That's not me, because I'm trying to have a respectable debate with you, or dialogue with you. Anyway, I understand that not everyone is gonna be able to do those things, and it is fine. Jason says, sure, I would prefer a nice big fat deal with a big 5 publisher, but as that doesn't seem to be in my immediate future, I self-publish and work with indie publishers. For me, it's more about getting the stories out there than the big paycheck and fame. It is extremely difficult, right? Because as Jason said, as that doesn't seem to be in my immediate future, I self-publish and work with indie authors because it's literally extremely difficult, right? He says, I would, quote, prefer, right? Of course, everyone would prefer. No one doesn't want money. Everyone wants money. Even others expressed the same thing. Donita says, I sway towards self-publishing for several reasons. Getting traditional published can be difficult. You have little creative control and they maintain the ISBN number. By the way, yeah, that one is a really big deal. Self-publishing allows autonomy. I have honestly done both. She has done both. To most people, Donita is like, an exception because she has like 2 perspectives. Because you see, she is good enough to traditionally publish. She chooses to self-publish. That one is flawless in my particular eye. If you're enjoying the debate, by the way, if you're enjoying talking to me, or you have ideas and you find this valuable, please consider subscribing. I will not waste your time. Let's get back into it. You might have heard this one before, right? Which is self-publishing makes you more money. The argument goes, because you self-publish, you make more money. But I would argue the opposite. because you self-publish, you make way less money. Like you make a ton less money than you would make from traditionally publishing. I'm not sure how to say the name, but Tour, this handsome fella, he says, let's see, if traditionally published and I had a book being sold at $4.99, the highest royalty percentage I would get is 25%. That's without any agent's cut, and it would come down to 1.24. And maybe I was lucky and got an advance, so they would X that too. Then I would pay 30% on average in taxes. Okay, let me simulate for you this particular scenario. You have two books, right? You have two books. You want to publish both books. One book you self-publish, another book you traditionally publish. We will take averages. The number of copies sold, the average, advance, the average, tax cut. We will use the numbers provided in the last tweet. We will use those numbers to argue and to basically number-wise deduce why traditional publishing makes you more money. You self-publish book A and you self-publish book B. So I did some digging, and according to scribe writing, basically the average self-published book on its lifetime, this is lifetime, sells 250 copies. This is 250 copies, and we will take the same for traditional publishing, okay? So the average self-published book sells 250 copies. That gives you, if you take, let's round $4.99 to $5. So $5, that gives you 1,250. When you multiply 5 by 250, 1,250. The average self-published book, the average, royalty is 60%. So basically there's a sale, you take 60% of that sale, which is phenomenal compared to traditional publishing. But don't get ahead of yourself quickly. You have, $750 now, $750. Okay, out of the 1,250, you have $750. Apply your tax rate of 30%. That drops you to $525. Then there is going to be the printing cost as well as the withholding. Let's say that costs you $5. If we ask God to clear the sky, $5. That drops you to a total of $520 in a lifetime. Let's go for your book that is traditionally published. The average traditionally published book will sell 3,000 copies. By the way, all of this stuff, all of the numbers I'm using, I got them online from sources that I personally trust. So check those sources. I will put the links in the description. But generally speaking, you have another book that is traditionally published. That book, on average, in its lifetime is going to sell 3,000 copies. That will give you 5 multiplied by 3,000. That gives you 15,000. We will take the advance provided in the tweet, which is 25%. That drops you to 3,750 out of 15,000. So you get 3,750, but don't rush, all right? You have to take out the taxes, which drops you to $2,625. Okay, that is 30%, $2,625. Now, we will not count the advance. Why? Because an advance is deducted from royalty. So when they give you money, when they give you an advance, eventually they will get it back. So that's not money that they're actually giving you. That's money that you have to earn. Of course, they cannot legally ask it back if it flops. This is one of the reasons why there are gatekeepers, because they are giving you money. The book could flop and they could lose so much money. Anyhow, moving on, you have, we will discontinue the advance. Okay, so you have agents and the agent cut. Okay, the agent's cut is 15% on average. That drops you to $2,231. At the end of the day, you made more money from traditionally publishing in a lifetime than you made by self-publishing. So if the argument here is that you self-publish, therefore you make more money, this assumption is wrong. Why? Because it assumes you will sell as much as you do when you were traditionally publishing. The assumption is wrong here. It's factually not backed by averages. You can be, of course, E.L. James, right? But 50 Shades of Grey. But even 50 Shades of Grey became mainstream and super successful after it was acquired by traditional publishers. But generally speaking, this assumption that self-publishing makes you as the author more money compared to traditional publishing, it is a false assumption that is not based on anything that is tangible, anything that is mathematically tangible that you can just grab hold of, right? If you traditionally publish, you make more money, you reach more audience, there is no stigma. That's where we are right now. Let's talk about the final thing. Dude, I'm so bad with names, but a good friend of mine, Propala Branch, she says, I prefer traditional publishing because that is the only way to big time bestseller chance. I want to ask you the question, and she is right. When, if you really pay attention to it, when was the last time you saw a best-selling self-published book? Of course, if you're going traditional publishing, you should not go into it with the assumption that you are going to be a bestseller. She continues, and I like that they give advance money, because you remember, advance money is guaranteed money. Because if you're going to make $520 on average from a self-published book on its lifetime, let's say you take a $30,000 advance for a particular book. Let's say your book doesn't even sell $10,000 worth of copies. They will not obviously give you any money, but the publisher endures the cost of the flop. You do not get to risk a flop. You spend your money on self-publishing and marketing and all of that, but the book flops, you lose money at the end of the day. And remember what? You are not a corporation. You are not a giant house. You're not a publishing, you're not even an imprint. Generally speaking, you are an individual. There is a far higher chance it will hurt you far more than it will hurt a publisher, because publishers on a given year should have profits from, a good chunk of their books. And maybe if they have one fat book, that book will subsidize the other books that flop. Anyhow, she continues, the most money can be made by traditional publishing. Absolutely true. Which is always my goal, to make the most money possible, though not for myself. Let's talk about the final element to self-publishing, which is the lack of critical understanding of self-publishing. When most people go into self-publishing, do you know what they have in mind? They have in mind that they're going to make more money if they traditionally publish. They have in mind outliers. Outliers like, 50 Shades of Grey, for instance, which is most of the time when you hear self-publishing, oh, I'm going self-publishing, most people, if they are confident with that route, really do not have a critical understanding of what it takes to be successful. Jenna Morassi, for instance, is someone who is a YouTuber. She has very good Twitter as well as Instagram, and she has spent more than 5 years right now building an online platform, and she has worked extremely hard to the nails every day to build her platform and to ensure that she has readers. She has worked for 5+ years consecutively to build a platform, and I doubt she will stop. You see, the type of person that is successful at self-publishing is Jenna Morassi. Most people are not going to be successful at self-publishing. Why? Because they do not go into it with a critical understanding. First of all, survivorship bias is awful. Because generally speaking, if you want to be successful at it, likely you're not going to be, 50 Shades of Grey. Likely you're not going to be any of those things, and you don't get to see the millions and millions of books that are self-published and have sold less than 10 copies. The average of 250 is really generous in this particular case. And I don't want to really come off as condescending to you, because I'm just sharing my perspective. I want you to share your perspective. In most cases, what you want to achieve is to make sure that on average, in the middle, you are successful. In the sense that if you try this, on average, you have a good chance of making a profit. What you want to do is basically what Jenna Morassi has done. But most people do not, because they don't think of the average profit margin. If you don't think of the average profit margin, basically, if you want to make an investment, you want to make sure that on average, that investment will return profit. Because if it does not, you lose money most of the time. It really is just not good odds. So those are the 5 arguments I have as to why traditional publishing is just better than self-publishing for me. Okay, so I want to hear what you have to say and what you believe and what you want from traditional publishing or self-publishing, and why you are going, which route you're going. And you can share with me in any depth. I will literally read 20,000 words from you, it doesn't matter. I want to have a debate and a dialogue with you. So hey, even if you're opposite me in terms of like where you are, you can absolutely tell me. Okay, so thank you for watching and God bless you.